On the tax changes, are you surprised at how well they've been received by workers and by the polling suggesting two-thirds?
People love tax cuts. You need to remember,
of people back
this isn't stage 3 of Labor's proposal for tax reform. This is the stage 3 of the coalition government's proposal for tax reform.
But they've changed it dramatically.
They have. In fact, they've changed it back to what I think Andrew proposed when he was working for Kevin Rudd a few years ago. So Rudd had a grand plan. I think Andrew Glenelg spoke about it on Sky a couple of days ago. There was a grand plan to move to just 3 tax brackets rather than the 4 we've got at the moment, ultimately to bring the top one down to 40 or even lower so that there's not an incentivisation to keep running businesses and using company tax as a diversion from income tax. These were all good ideas, but it didn't eventuate under Rudd. It did eventuate under us. It was put in law, but it seems that Albanese took a ticket out of the PJK book and went to the press club for a new mandate, for a new tax proposal, and then announced it. But we are obviously the party of tax cuts. They're our tax cuts, wiggled at the end by Labor in an utterly disingenuous way because they promised 100 times to keep with the original plan.
Disingenuous, maybe, but popular.
Well, they're certainly popular with the Liberal Party, who I understand intends to vote for them. And, we've just heard a lot of criticism of these tax cuts. But the truth is, at the end of the day, despite all of the criticisms that Zoe just gave us, she is going to vote for these tax changes, which means that everything she has said is just politics.
But I will remind people what it means for them. I've gone through the average prices of houses and units all throughout my electorate. In every single suburb, Crib Point, Somerville, Hastings, you need to be making 130, 140, 150, and they're exactly the group that Labor has shunted in this change, right? So it's harder now.
They still get more under Labor's change.
But they don't get what they were going to get, right? So it's that much harder to save the deposit. It's that much harder to buy into really modest suburbs in my electorate. So the suggestion that they're pro-aspiration is madness, right? This is making it harder for people to reach their goals. And they're running around presenting people on 140 and 150 like they're Gina Reinhardt or Andrew Forrest. They're not, right? The people who are buying Crib Point are modest families doing it tough who have to make a significant amount of money, and it just got harder for them.
No, there's no doubt that people are on that wage is hardly rich, but this is the feedback from backbenchers, Liberal and Labor, to me, has been overwhelmingly, the feedback on the streets, door knocks and so on, has been very positive. Have you had much on the breach of promise, though, the broken promise?
Look, I think most people think that aspiration is not just for the income cohort that Zoe talked about. Aspiration is something for all Australians, whether they earn the kind of money she was describing or less. And what this tax cut does is it spreads that aspiration up to all working Australians and makes sure that every Australian gets more reward for the work that they do. And so, yes, it has been well received. And to answer your question, I think most Australians see this as a better way, and they are pleased that the government chose to do the right thing. And that's what's colouring their view of these tax cuts.
It should help them in Dunkley. Your neighbouring seat.
I think it was designed to help them in Dunkley, Kieran. That was the whole point, right? A tax reform regime that would actually benefit 87% of voters in Dunkley. So that's what they went to the election with in mind on the 2nd of March, rather than the broken promises 100 times over.
Zoe McKenzie, Andrew Charlton, you've got to get to question time. See you next week. Thank